It is an honor to have my children. I am so grateful for the majority of my life. I know that I wasn't present as a mother. I was very focused on career and making money, and I know that I lived in a state of survival pretty much my entire life up until I was, in my 40s. Honestly, I had no idea. And I can definitely see where, and my son and I have had these conversations, and what I realized is that, this one thing that he said to me, he was like, all I ever wanted was your love.
Welcome to the 1000 Days Sober podcast. My name is Lee Davey. I'm not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I live a self-led life, and I spend every waking moment of my life helping other people do the same. Today, we're going to be speaking to Valerie Vazquez. Valerie Vazquez. Valerie is the host or the co-host of the Spiraling Together podcast. She's also an ordained energy healer and minister. She lives in a beautiful farm in Hawaii with her family, and she's really passionate about holistic wellness and spiritual growth. And she combines her deep connection to nature with her healing practices. Okay. On her podcast, Spiraling Together, her and Chloe, they talk about the mother and daughter healing journey. And this is where they share insights and experiences on the path to healing and self-discovery. So check out Spiraling Together. It's on all podcast platforms. And you can also go to Spiraling Together on YouTube to check them out on video to see what they both look like. The reason that I reached out to Valerie and wanted to talk to her is it's very unusual to have the viewpoint of a relationship from both the parent and the child, especially when the child is in their teens or early 20s. Chloe's 22, I think. So I think that's really, really interesting. For those of you that have children around that age, or you have children who are younger, are going to be that age, to listen to their perspective is super cool, right? We hear a lot on podcasts with parents giving parental advice, et cetera, et cetera. We don't always hear the children talk about what they need or what was tough for them or what was great for them, And another reason that I reached out is I've been on a coaching program with Valerie before, and, we're quite similar in as much as we both suffered from alcohol reliance. We both had problems in our relationships, particularly with our children and our partners and everything as a result of being reliant on alcohol. And we lived very unconscious lives, and we overcome that to become more conscious, to become alcohol free as fuck. And I was really interested to talk to a parent who really has that contrast of remembering what it was like to be completely unconscious, to be completely robot, to not be present for your children, to actually turn that around and be present and to be conscious in your parenting, and how that actually manifests itself in your relationship with your children and your partner in the house. So that's why I got Valerie on. So I hope you really do enjoy it. Here at Strive at the moment, we're going through a little parenting phase, if you like. For me, when it comes to being alcohol-free as fuck, it's the things that underpin the problems that you have in other areas of the life that make it really difficult to stop drinking. And so parenting struggles, relationship struggles, sex struggles, money struggles, career struggles, self-worth struggles, emotional struggles. These are all the reasons why our firefighter parts turn to alcohol as a solution. So covering those is really important. And that's what this podcast is all about. That's what Strive and the Strive method is all about. So we're going through a little parenting kick. So search for LeeDavyCoaching on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, and you'll find a lot of really great posts on conscious parenting. My apologies. Got a frog in my throat. Yeah, you'll find a lot of great posts there on conscious parenting and living a self-led life and recognizing when your parts come up in parenting, okay? And we're going to have a plethora of guests on the 1000 Day Sober podcast talking about parenting as well. And I'm going to be appearing on some parenting podcasts as well. I've also created a free gift. It's called Nurturing Resilience, how to show your children through the digital age, which is all about really working on yourself. The feedback from the book is really good. So if you want to get your free copy of that, head over to www.thestrivemethod.com. You'll get the pop-up, you put your email address in, and then you can download it and also receive some really good email content from me. If you want to join Strive, if you're interested in undertaking the Strive Method quests, getting involved in a community of people who want to up-level their lives in all areas of their lives and live more consciously, live a self-led life, to have group coaching sessions, to have interactions with me, or if you wanted to do one-to-one coaching with me, then again, head over to www.thestrivemethod.com and add your name to the waiting list. We like our community to be intimate. We're not going to have any more than 30 members. So get over there and sign up, and that'd be fantastic. And last but not least, if you have the time, please rate and review the show. This is a type of show that actually saves people's lives, right? Because alcohol reliance can be really difficult for people. So please go to your podcast and rate and review the show, okay? All right. Without much further ado, I'll shut the hell up and leave you in the capable hands of Valerie Vazquez. Yeah, so what island do you live on then?
So I live currently on the Big Island.
Uh-huh.
So we did live on Oahu for about 7-ish years, 6 or 7 years. And then in 2020, we ended up selling our house and moving over to the Big Island because it's much more country style. Mm-hmm. So we have a farm now. So we live on a 10-acre farm, and the pace of life is a lot slower out here. Oahu is the most populated of the Hawaiian Islands. And we were like living in that hustle and bustle. And it was just like, during 2020, a lot of people had that like, it's time to, slow down a little bit. And so we came out here to kind of escape.
Well, that sounds really interesting. And tell me, where did the idea for Spiraling Together come from?
So, yeah, I was invited to be on a podcast with some friends. We were in a program together, and after being on their podcast, I just really felt like I wanted to start my own podcast. And as I was going through and figuring out what I wanted to do, my daughter, I was like, do you want to be my assistant and help me out with everything? And she was like, yeah, that would be great. And so we started making notes. And in her notes, she put herself as a guest on the show. And I was like, I didn't think that she would want to be on camera or do anything. But I was like, so you want to be a guest? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, well, what if we just did a podcast together, sweetheart? And she was, really? I was hoping you would say that, Mom. And I was like, aw, yeah. So then we just started putting it together and things just kept falling into place.
How old is she?
She's 22.
And how many other children do you have, or is Chloe the only one?
I have a son who will be 24 in September.
Oh, that's cool. What's your son's name?
His name is Logan.
Logan. I like that name. Oh, so Logan and Chloe. Okay, so this is really cool. So the reason I asked you to come on is for a long, long time, I've been helping people to become what I call alcohol free as fuck, right? So like to become sober, AF. And I realized over time that it's helping people to stop drinking is really nothing to do with alcohol. Like stopping drinking alcohol is very easy. The problem for people is that when you stop, it opens up that first chink of light into what a conscious life could look like. It's almost like you go up an extra notch in the video game and life suddenly becomes a little bit harder, and the monsters and end bosses that you have to fight are a little bit more unusual, and a little bit stronger. And I realized that that's the work that I needed to do, right? Like if I could help people to become more conscious, then they would be able to make a conscious decision over whether or not they wanted to drink alcohol or not. And I think that makes a big difference. My wife makes conscious decisions to drink alcohol very sporadically, therefore she doesn't have a problem with it. When I was drinking, I was making unconscious decisions to drink alcohol and was making a mess of myself. And so more recently, I've been putting a lot of content out there on conscious parenting, because I have a 22-year-old boy, Jude, and a 7-year-old girl, Zia. And that is my challenge. She is especially my 7-year-old. She's like my greatest teacher. So I've been putting a lot of stuff out there in terms of conscious parenting, because I remember what it was like to be very unconscious as a parent. Do you have that memory, and can you talk about that if you indeed do?
Sure, I absolutely do. And also, I just want to speak to, I just hit my 1 year mark of being alcohol free. Yeah. And I totally agree with you. It is so necessary to be on the journey of consciously living and not choosing alcohol. And also, as a parent, demonstrating that you do not have to fall back on alcohol every time something is going on. In the past, my kids would see me reaching for alcohol. Oh my gosh, I had such a bad day and now I need to wash the pain away. I didn't know any other coping mechanisms. And so for the majority of my life with my children, honestly, it wasn't until about 4 years ago that I really did become conscious and start my journey of self-awareness and start realizing the ways that I parented the way I learned how to parent and the ways that that affected my children. And then I could start to see like the wounding patterns in them that came from me. And so what I chose to do is just really focus on my own healing and focus on being a better example to them of, how you can live life here without using substances and what type of practices that you can do to really be safe in your own body. But honestly, throughout the majority of my life, I did not parent in any other way except for being that superior, like villain type archetype, that you do because that's what you learn. So over the last several years, I've been slowly unwinding and undoing that type of parenting and showing up in a completely different way. I don't always do it perfectly, but I try my best and I apologize a lot, for I've gotten a lot better, I can catch myself now, once you have that certain type of consciousness, you can actually be aware of what you're going to say before you say it, especially if you're regulated in your own system. And both Logan and Chloe are actually living on the farm with us right now, just during the summer. So it's been a whole different way because they're young adults. And so I cannot tell them what to do, but I can set healthy boundaries with them, and we have uncomfortable conversations together that we never did as they were growing up. So.
Yeah, I think one of the things you said there that is really important point to press home for the people in the audience here, because especially people who have stopped drinking or who are considering it, it's such a monumental moment in your life. It's really difficult to explain unless you've done it, because the way that the whole, what I call the liquid lie, like this system that indoctrinates you to drink alcohol from birth, it does such a good job that even when you're hooked on the stuff, you don't realize you're hooked on it. So you're never going to understand the magnitude of the decision to stop. It is so huge. And when you do that, there was a part of me that was like, I really don't want my kids to drink. I don't want them to go down the same road. So hopefully if I don't drink, they won't. And then that changed to, actually, the liquid lie is so strong, I probably don't have a cat in hell's chance of stopping them from drinking. But what I can do, like you said, is I can show them that there is a different way. And I don't know about you, Valerie, but when I grew up, there was no different way because nobody else I knew in the world didn't drink alcohol. Correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I exactly. Everyone drank alcohol, and it's still just so, like you said, it's within every fabric of everything. You drink to celebrate, you drink to mourn, you drink to just drink, 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 drink. And that age of 21 here, in the United States, where it's like, it's legal. It's like this rite of passage. You're finally an adult. So it's almost like you have to, in a sense. And my kids are at that age right now, and they see the effects of it, and they see the way that like it doesn't make them feel good, but it's still all of their friends are doing it, and it's what's so normalized. And you're right. Growing up, everyone drank all the time, everywhere we ever went. I never saw an adult that didn't drink when I was growing up.
I think a key thing is knowing that it's very likely that our children will drink. What is the second best thing we can do? And I guess that is raising our children and guiding our children to find that self-love, that self-awareness, that self-care, that self-acceptance within themselves. So they build high levels of self-esteem. So when they do drink, they're not doing it to impress other people or live the outside in life, as Preston Smiles likes to say. They're doing it because they're making a conscious decision to doing it, and they're treating it with respect because they don't need anybody else's approval. And I think for that to happen, us as parents, we need to be switched on conscious and helping to bring that out in them, because if we have low self-esteem and we're playing the outside-in game and we're totally unconscious, then they're going to mirror our behaviors when they grow up. So for me, parenting really starts, or conscious parenting really starts with the journey and the work within. I don't know if you concur.
I absolutely do. I mean, it's kind of like, Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And so we have to truly do the work on ourselves. And instead of trying to force or have anyone else do the work, we have to do the work. We have to be an example. And we also have to remember that each of our children have already made a soul contract. And so they are going to have to go through certain lessons. And as much as we want to, as parents, not for them to make the same mistakes and not for them to get hurt, sometimes they're still going to have to do that thing. And it might be drinking alcohol, unfortunately, until they realize, whoa, I don't want to feel that way. My daughter will tell me that. She'll say, we went out dancing and I did drink too much and I felt so awful. I don't want to do that again like that. Maybe next time I might have a drink or two, but, thankfully right now she's with a boyfriend that really doesn't drink very much. And so that's actually amazing to be, in partnership with someone that isn't drinking. So yeah, they are going to have to learn their lessons, but us being the example and showing them other ways to possibly have fun without alcohol,
Well, and just also the fact that she has that conversation with you is a byproduct of your own growth and your own self-development, because if you would have remained an unconscious parent behaving in that way, then it could have been that that trust is eroded, and then those conversations are not being had. It's a little bit like Gabor Mate's book that I'm reading at the moment, and quite conveniently forget what it is, but it's about peer attachment. I don't know if you...
I know what you're talking about. I really love him. I don't know the name of the book either.
I'm going to get it up on my Kindle because I've been reading it. What is it? It is... Hold on to your kids, why parents need to matter more than their peers. So he's talking about attachment and how it's really important for parents to be the person your child attaches to, because if they don't, they will go and attach to their peers. And if they attach to their peers, all kinds of stuff goes crazy because the peers don't care for them as much as parents do. And alcohol consumption is a good example of that. If Chloe doesn't trust her mother, then Chloe will go to her friends. And if they are stuck in the liquid light, then they probably want to drink, and they probably want their friends to drink, and they don't want any cognitive dissonance or to face the possibility that there could be a problem or an issue. So, again, it goes back to this growth being super important. I'm really interested, Valerie, when was the moment where, and I just want to put a caveat in here for everybody listening. I personally think it's okay to be a complete fuck up as a parent, right? Like I am, and I have been all my life. But what is important is I recognize that and I want to change it, and I'm doing the best I can. I just want to put that caveat in, because when we talk sometimes about parenting and we go into the weeds of it, it could create some shame in the listeners. And if that happens, feel free to reach out to me or Valerie, and we can have a little chat or conversation about it to help you out. But when was the time when you realized, Valerie, I need to do something here because I am parenting unconsciously? Like the way that I'm behaving is impacting my children, and I have to change. Was there a moment that happened for you, or did it happen incrementally?
Well, I think it happened I know it happened abruptly for me. I had a pretty big awakening in 2020 where I just really saw so much. I saw all of the trauma, all of the ways that we hurt each other in humanity, and just how it's so normalized. And I just really realized the ways that first off, I saw the ways I was hurt, like when you're doing some of the inner child work, and then you realize that you did that to your children unconsciously. And so it hit me pretty abruptly. And I was just like, whoa, oh my gosh. I just felt such an immense amount of guilt and that shame that you talked about. But of course, I also, since I was doing the work on myself, I was able to give love to those parts and know that I didn't do that on purpose, that was just subconscious programming that had been done, and that I was just repeating patterns of generational trauma. And so, yeah, it hit me pretty abruptly. I was really able to see just so many patterns and programs. I think that's one of my gifts and curses at the same time, is that I can see that pretty easily, even in the way that people interact together. I can just see like these wounding patterns within people. And in the beginning, I had no filter to understand that just because I have that gift, you don't say it, Now I'm able to witness it and understand that, yeah, that's just part of being a human, is that we have those. So everyone does.
Yeah, I hear you. Finding your gifts and then trying to put them out very clumsily on the world. Yeah, I get that completely. You're talking a little bit, it sounds a little bit like self-love. And I know that's a theme that comes through in your podcast with Chloe. What does self-love look like for you?
Taking care of myself first and foremost, doing the things, the practices I know that regulate my nervous system and that connect me to my higher power. Doing things that I actually desire and that bring me joy, so that in every opportunity I have to be with someone else, I have taken care of myself. I've exercised, I've taken care of myself physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. I've taken care of all of those pillars. And then I can show up as my best self with my kids, with my husband, with anyone else that I'm around. And I no longer think it's selfish. I think I'm more important than doing the dishes in the morning. They can sit there now. while I do a yoga practice or whatever I want to do, go pick flowers on the farm and make a bouquet. Self-love is honoring myself and my desires and what brings me joy.
So was there a moment when you did feel that this self-love practices were selfish?
The majority of my life, I didn't take care of myself at all. I put everything else in front of me, the kids, the career, the husband. I kind of did that role that most women have grown up with taking care of everyone else before yourself. And I learned that as well. And since I never really saw my mom taking care of herself, I didn't see that as something that you did as a woman. And so it's more of like a feeling when you start doing this self-love journey that those programs come in and they're like, oh, wait, I have to do this thing first. And I have to take care of the kids, this and that. And I know there's some things that absolutely, depending on your child's age, you don't really have, when you have a newborn or you have a baby or a young child, you do have to take care of their needs. You might not be able to do the kind of self-love practices I'm able to do now, but you have to find the time. And like I said, it's just a feeling that comes up, I guess. That's more like a program feeling of, this is selfish for me to do this for myself before I do all of these other things.
It is so interesting how women and men's kind of like brains work in these type of things. I remember having conversations with Liza, especially when Zia was little, where a great example is the shower, right? It's like I jump in the shower and Liza being like, what the heck? Like, you're having a shower and you didn't think of asking me? And in my head, I'm just like, back in the day, well, you just gotta push yourself. You just gotta get in there, right? You've just gotta put yourself first and jump in the shower, or be like, Lee, take the baby. I'm getting in the shower, because that's what I do. Like, if I want to go to the movies with my mates, that's what I do. Like, so why aren't you doing that? And you can see that it's not easy. Like, it's generational. It is like deep and goes back generations that just creates this unconscious programming of wanting to mother and wanting to protect and wanting to take that back seat. Whereas the guy's kind of more like, no, that's what I want. I'm just going to go for it. Very kind of like tunnel focus. And that's been a lot of my work, actually, is the opposite, I guess, is yours like being more tunnel focused, being more selfish is like the wrong word, really, but putting yourself first and filling your cup up so you can give from the overflow, I guess, right? Whereas my work has been more about really recognizing when my wife and children need me or need help or need certain things, and putting that first. That's kind of been my work. I'm curious, when you started to change in 2020, what impact did that have on your children? And did you have any issues or problems that you had to go through as a result of their mom literally changing and going from unconscious to conscious, I guess?
So in 2020, they weren't actually living with us at that time. They were living with their dad in Alabama. And so they weren't really with me that whole time. But when I picked them up, like they wanted to move back home, they definitely saw me completely different. And they were just, I don't really know exactly what they thought. I know what Chloe says now. She's like, you've completely blossomed is what the term that she uses. But, so I had hit a really low point, and I was severely depressed. And I actually I had to fight my way through that. And so I wouldn't say I wasn't around them a lot until I was able to bring myself up out of that. My son actually helped me a lot. But it took me, I had a lot. Like I definitely was someone that had what you would diagnose as like CPTSD. So it took me a while to work through things before I could truly even be around them, I guess you would say, where I was not just so tunnel focused on my own healing. I felt like I really I did have a lot to unravel. And then when we started living together again, then they were just like, I guess they expected me to be the same that I was before. And I could just see the way their mannerisms would be around me, especially my son. And he'd be like, oh, I have this done and it's like, it's okay, honey. Like, don't worry. Like, you're an adult, and I'm not going to get mad at you for that, but it made me feel like, whoa, I already did a lot. I don't want to say damage, but I already, had hurt them in ways that I was seeing. So yeah, I think being here at the farm is when we're really able to be around each other and they can see the difference in me.
I see you when you had a little pause then about, and you was going to say damage and then stopped. And I just want to tell you something that I realized the other day and we talked about is my daughter is 7. I think probably, it's up for debate, that the only other human being that loves her more than I do is probably her mom, right? Even if that is such a thing. So I absolutely would die for her. But in the first 7 years of her life, without a doubt, the person that has hurt her the most out of 7.8 billion people in the world is me. I've totally hurt her more than my wife has, because my wife, when it comes to being a parent, is so much more advanced and so much more conscious and so much more free from the entanglement of the weeds of inner child trauma than I am. And I'm okay with that because I know that she is doing really well and she's hit the parenting lottery. And I will continue to hurt her, and I will continue to also lead her and guide her and pick her up and all those things, because we're human. So I just want to offer that out there to you and everybody else listening, that, parenting and relationships, there's nothing more difficult than this in the world. And it's like the proverbial nobody gave us a guidebook, right? But the work that you're doing, especially the podcast with Chloe, imagine what a mother she could be when she's older as a result of the work you're doing. It's like you are a generational lineage breaker, right? I have just having a little pause in this conversation between me and Valerie to tell you, if you want to live a self-led life, if you want to be a better parent, if you want to be conscious, if you want to be present, if you want to be grounded in your parenting, and remember, parenting never ends. It doesn't matter what your kid is. If you have decades of work to catch up on, if you have forgiveness processes to go into, if you feel shame and guilt for the way that you parented when you was unconscious, and now you want to put that right, Strive might be for you. Head over to www.thestrivemethod.com and join the waiting list to really put that right. Okay. All right. Back to Valerie Vazquez.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is an honor to have my children. I am so grateful for the majority of my life. I know that I wasn't present as a mother. I was very focused on career and making money. And I know that I lived in a state of survival pretty much my entire life up until I was, in my 40s. Honestly, I had no idea. And I can definitely see where, and my son and I have had these conversations. And what I realized is that, this one thing that he said to me, he was like, all I ever wanted was your love. And I was like, I did love you. But then I was like, but I didn't love him the way he needed to be loved. Just like I didn't feel like my mother loved me the way I needed to be loved, which was just having attention and just being there and not being so focused on everything else. And so now that is what I'm doing here on the farm is when they are here, I am giving them the nurturance and the love and the attention I might not have always been able to when I was younger. And I know that I didn't. But now I'm just like, I just want to make sure that you know that I'm here for you. I know that, my daughter and I, we hug and we can cuddle and everything, but I'm not going to really cuddle my 24-year-old son. We'll hug and everything, but we're not, you know what I mean? It's different when they're older. But yeah, I can definitely see that they will be different parents now if they decide to have children.
If they decide to have children, yeah. Yeah, what I found, I don't know if it's the same with you, is it's not until you have children and you go through the different ages of their development. So, for example, Jude is 23. So parenting a 23-year-old is very different to parenting a 7-year-old. And it's not until you go through these different ages that they activate the child part that is the same age that is in your unconscious that all of a sudden says, hey, hang on, what's this all about? So a good example would be my daughter Zia getting everything that she wants or needs, and my 7-year-old all of a sudden getting really triggered because it never had anything when it was younger. And all of a sudden I'm emanating from that 7-year-old place, but I couldn't prepare for that because I never knew it would happen. So I've seen some really great thought leaders in the business, real great gurus that me and you have been coached by that then have parents, and it's like, holy shit. So it's like you can do so much work to prepare, but at the same time, you're just in it. And what you said there, I think what you're talking about is like being present is super important. Like it's like get down on their level and really understand what is going on in my daughter's life, what is going on in my son's life, especially because they don't, when they're very young as well, they don't have the capacity, the language, the emotional intelligence, the prefrontal cortex to even articulate to you what they actually want, right? So we have to be really, really present. And that's not easy, especially if you're not practicing it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I feel that so we have 2 houses at the farm. They live in one and we live in one. And in the morning before they wake up, I make sure that I do all the things I need to do to fill my cup. And then when we get together, I just really listen to what they say. And I'm present in that way instead of trying to do a whole bunch of other things or even, I just listen. If they want to have conversations, I just listen. And I think that that's the type of presence they need, is listening and not chiming in and giving them my feedback unless they want it, which I do ask them, would you like my feedback? Well, my daughter and I have, I would say, more intimate conversations. And she really does trust me and comes to me with a lot. And what I love about her is that if I do say, would you like feedback? She's so open to it. And so like conscious and able to see like, oh yeah, I did actually show up in that way. So I love that. And my son is also they're both very conscious, and I'm grateful for that. And they're also able to we're also able to have conversations about in the past, the things that did hurt them and the ways that they're working through that now. And it really is just being there to like listen to them. That's what they need. listen to them and support them for their ideas of what they want to do, and not tell them that put the fear into, like, my own fear when they tell me they're going to do something. They're both moving to the mainland, one to San Diego, one to Alaska. And I'm just like, that part of you that's just like, you're really going to move 5 and 6 hours away. I can't say those things. All I can do is say, man, that's going to be so awesome. I can't wait to one day come visit you. And,
I love that question about, can I give you some feedback? Like, we was in Korea a couple of weeks ago, and me, Liza, and Zia, my daughter, were involved in a heated conversation about something. And my brother-in-law, Daniel, who's like one of the best communicators ever, he reached out and said to Zia, can I give you some feedback? And she went, no. And he just went, okay. And one of the things I've noticed with both of my children is when I ask them if I can give them feedback, more often than not, they say no. And what I take from that is there is a history of me shifting into parts, into fix it mode. So there's a part of me that feels unsafe around my children's behavior or some actions they're going to take or some potential consequences. And I get unsafe. And then the way that I control that safety is a part of me comes out to like control the situation, try to fix their life for them. And I've noticed that they don't like that. So where I am in the process at the moment is when I say, do you want some feedback? They say no, is I'm repairing that, right? Like I'm even by saying, okay, I'm respecting that boundary, is building back a little bit of that trust that's been eroded by the man coming into the house with the status hierarchy over the child, telling them, no, this is the way that it will be and this is what you will do. There's nothing worse than that, because you really are robbing your children of a voice, and it has a lot of consequences for them, especially young women growing up. I sometimes think about, if I don't get my act together and really grow and develop this conscious parenting with Zia, then what are her boundaries going to be like when she's with other men? Right? Like, she's just got to accede and do what the man says because that's what my dad was like. I can't have that. Right. So I don't know if you have anything to say or to comment on any of that.
No, I definitely resonate, and my husband is working on the same thing, because yes, men are very logical and do want to fix things. And they ultimately, what I truly believe is that you are coming from a place of wanting to protect, but it truly does squash, because it is trying to control, and it's not allowing the child, or even as a wife, I experienced this with my husband. It doesn't allow us to have our freedom to make choices from our own intuition as, a woman or a girl. And that's what I'm trying to teach Chloe right now is, if we're also always told by a parent how to do something, they don't develop the skills to trust their own inner guidance. And then they will ask everyone outside of them what they should do with their lives instead of really like being able to make that choice. So I applaud you for definitely having that consciousness and realizing that when we do ask the question, would you like our feedback? And they say no, they're their own autonomous being. And so they have the ability, and we just have to trust that they're going to be guided the right way. And if not, hopefully they'll trust us enough to come back and say, hey, mom, hey, dad, I tried it my way. And I actually would love your feedback now. So
let me give you a really good example of that. And then you can tell me how it lands on your side of the fence. My daughter had a play date today. So 3 kids. and they trashed her bedroom, right? They absolutely turned it upside down. And earlier on, I went in there and she's tidying it up and she's putting the sheet on her single bed. And, when you put those sheets on, sometimes it's difficult, right? It just does not fit. And her mum's in there putting stuff away as well. And she is like, oh, I'm struggling here to put this sheet on. So I come in like the dad and I'm like, oh, let me do it. And then as I'm doing it, Liza says she was actually doing a really good job there in a really nice, soft way. And I clicked, oh, you're going into fix it mode, Lee. You're showing your daughter what to do and making her feel incapable that she can't do a sheet. So then I said, oh, actually, if you come around here where I am, it's a little bit easier. So she came around and she put the sheet on. I would say not that long ago, had that incident happened, I wouldn't have been aware. I wouldn't have been self-aware enough to understand what the heck was going on. A part would have been triggered by Liza telling me that she was doing okay. The part would have reacted aggressively towards my wife verbally. And I would have just out of spite put the sheet on. And then I would have argued and been defensive later that my wife was out of order with the comment and she shouldn't have commented like that in front of my daughter. If she's got a problem, say it to me. I would have done everything I could to kind of protect my own shame. And now what we've got is a daughter who is got a terrible role model in terms of her father, but not just that, there's a divide in parenting, and the kid is seeing two people she loves not coherent or cohesive at all. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you know, having all of the awareness that you have on just being able to see that and how much growth you've already done to the point. Again, I want to applaud you on that, because you're right. Most times people don't see that at all. And so that's beautiful. You're doing it, Dad. You're doing it. And yeah. And I just think it's each time we step into a situation like that, if we truly go into it knowing that we are learning from it, we're not supposed to be perfect, and we're not supposed, like, it's impossible not to make the mistakes when we're learning how to navigate being a parent in a different way that has never been demonstrated for us before. And so I don't really know anything else to add to that, except for that you are doing an amazing job at seeing all of these different little intricate parts of being conscious, and how you can, like, yeah, I think you did a great job just kind of stepping back and then offering Liza help, in the way that you can, do you want my help with this, honey? Or, that I don't think you could have done anything better or worse than what you did in that situation.
Thank you for that. I mean, right at the beginning of the podcast, you said about how effective you are at repair work. Talk about that a little bit, because I have come to terms with the fact that it's going to be a very long time, maybe never, that I will constantly get ahead of the curve. So I've come to terms with the fact that I'm going to screw up a lot. For example, the bedroom scene, I'm going to mess that up more than I'm going to get it right. But what's important to me is I get back into integrity as quickly as possible, the repair work. Can you talk about that? Because I think it's really important. And I'd love to hear how you found your way into that and how you actually deal with it when you've had a bit of a rupture in your relationships with your kids.
So I don't really think that I would say you're screwing up or we're never really screwing up or messing up anything as we're learning. And who's to say that we truly know any better in that moment, right? It's coming out of a situation like that and then just knowing in that time, I did the best I could with what I knew. Yeah, I probably could have handled it differently now in this moment because I can see it. But in that moment, I didn't see it. And so what I do is if I have a moment with my kids where maybe I said something or offered them the feedback when they weren't ready or any of the things, I usually, as soon as I see it, sometimes it's immediate and sometimes it takes me a little while. I will immediately just say, hey, that situation that just happened, I'm sorry. You know what? In the future, what I'm going to strive to do is this instead of that. How does that feel for you? And then they're usually like, oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, and my kids actually, because we've been doing this work together, they actually will call me out on things. You know, one of the places I have the hardest time is in the kitchen, like cooking or something. And then I will say, oh, if you just get the garlic press and do this, that. And then they'll just look at me and I'll go, you got it. You know how to do it. I don't even need to say anything. So it's just owning it to repair it. Yeah. And then giving myself the love back that I'm doing the best I can, and we're not supposed to reach some level of complete perfection where we're never going to make a mistake that we can learn from.
Yeah, I agree with that. For me, it's like in the 15 commitments of conscious leadership, they use the example of the line, like they call it line awareness, like continually kind of checking in with yourself. Am I above the line in a state of self, or am I below the line in a state of victim consciousness? And I find that when I'm not checking in on where I am on the line, I'm generally below the line, and I could do that I could very easily wake up in the morning and just unconsciously go through the day and end up like it's a real battle for me to get conscious. And people laugh at me because I leave notes and reminders to tell me to love my children, to buy gifts, to do something special. I have little alarms that go off that ask me, am I treating my wife with respect? Does she feel loved? Is she seen? Is she heard? Is she stimulated? Is she treated in awe? Like I have these things pop up all the time because I know I have a tendency to get in my head and just to it's almost like I'm a Tesla, right? And I just switch the drive up mode on and I leave it to the AI. And then I wake up the next morning. And that has always been there for me. It's one of the ways that I'm able to function really well as a businessman and a moneymaker, I guess, in a certain way. So I have to be really careful of those things. You did mention earlier on that your parents were living in Alabama, your kids were living in Alabama. So with Jude, my 22-year-old, it was difficult for me to parent him because he didn't live with me. And then I met somebody else. So then I met somebody else when he was 10. So now there's a stepmom, there's a ex-wife, there's a child. It was messy. It was horrible. It's still repercussions 12 years later today. Any advice on what to do and what not to do for blended families out there that you could give them?
So I just wanted to say, same situation for me. I was married for 15 years before. So Logan and Chloe's dad is, my ex-husband now, who is also an alcoholic. And the advice I would give is you can't tell the other person how to parent the kids when they have them. You just can't. You can try the best thing that I've done is to I don't really talk with my ex-husband now because the kids are adults. But when they were younger and we were still co-parenting, even though we weren't together, I had the realization that I really needed to have the best type of relationship with him that I could, and just talk about the children and the needs that were best for them, and to try not to talk about anything else. Try not to bring anything into the conversation that could cause any heated debates or any make sure that I was emotionally sound enough to be able to have a conversation with him, never to talk bad about him in front of my children. That was one thing I did not do, even though there was obviously, when you go through a divorce with someone, they're not your favorite person, or you wouldn't have gotten a divorce. So not talking negatively about them. My kids now, I guess my throat chakra is being activated. No,
I've been like this all day as well.
I don't know. My kids, we can have conversations now, but I tell them some of the things that I went through in the marriage, but I still try not to talk negatively about their father. So, yeah, that's kind of just being able to still co-parent without bringing negativity in. And if something does get heated, just being able to have a boundary and say, okay, I feel like the conversation, I feel like I'm good with the conversation today. So I'm going to go ahead and, talk to you another time if something else were to come up.
Yeah. I, again, on the conversation, on the topic of not speaking bad about the other parent, that is made easier when you've advanced your consciousness. Like if you are in an unconscious state, it's really difficult because your parts are going to be activated, and it's just going to be a question of biology, right? You're just going to be triggered. You're going to get into fight or flight, and you're going to want to protect your integrity if it's being questioned, and say shit back. It's really difficult, isn't it? It's like it's difficult for everybody. It's difficult for the two parents who are splitting up. It's difficult for the children. It's difficult for the new parents that come in to the equation as well. I guess my advice on it would be, take your time. Like when there's a break, take your time and fully heal before you get into another relationship. That would be the one thing that I would say that I did not do.
I did not do that either. I didn't do that either. Oh my gosh, I got married. I got married the same year I got divorced to my current husband. And I know it all happened for a reason. I mean, he's part of the reason why I had an awakening too. And him and I are working through our relationship. And it's actually I have the best relationship with him that I've had with anyone. And we're continuing to grow together. But yeah, if you're not healed, it's hard to go. And when we say healed, if you're not conscious and you're not working on yourself, and you don't realize that you attract a partner based on your, wounds, you could potentially really, yeah.
I mean, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna talk like I used to when I was stuck in the matrix, right? Like, so I would know of the term rebound. So like I'm going through a breakup, going through a divorce, and then I would understand the term rebound. So for me, the term would be like, I am actually getting into a relationship with somebody else because I need somebody else, because I'm missing a hole or something in my life because I've been in this other relationship for so long. Like, so I would know the word, but because I'm a Tesla and I'm just automatic, I'm not really paying any attention or surrounding myself with people who can give me some really good, check out my blind spots, ask me some really great questions. Like, I'm not doing the work whatsoever. So of course, when you fall in love with somebody else, in my case, I had no idea that what was going on was I had this gaping hole in my heart and I really needed to fill it. And I was worried that because I was old, 35 at the time, that all the best women in the world would be taken and I would be perennially lonely and ugly and nobody would like. I had no idea that all that stuff was going on, right? So, and then the harm that it causes to the person you go into a relationship with, your children, like I said before, it is really difficult. And I'm in the same spot as you, whereas I love my wife now, and I would say that our relationship has had its difficulties, and I would like it to have been a little bit smoother. But boy, have I learned so much. It's like, Valerie, I was saying this to someone the other day. When you're in an unconscious relationship and you're drinking and you're reliant on alcohol and you're doing all these things, I had no quarrels with my wife around parenting. And yet I am probably at a higher state of consciousness than I've ever been. So is my wife. And we have loads of fights about parenting. And it's because I just didn't see the issues. I just didn't see problems. So there's problems and mess everywhere, but I just don't see it. And my wife didn't see it, so we never thought about it. Whereas now when you're more conscious, you see it. And if you haven't got your communication skills tapped in and tuned, and you're not connected with your partner as well as you should be, you're going to get involved in more turmoil. So for me, it's a little bit like you stop drinking, and then part of the journey to be more conscious is you have to go through this mess. It's like imagine you've gone through life with glasses on that are blacked out, and then all of a sudden someone takes the black and you see your life for the first time and you have to deal with it. That's going to be really difficult if you don't have the skills to do it. So everyone at home, be prepared for that. Like the rainbows and unicorns and the pink fluffy clouds, you do get them, but they don't last. They drift away. Their horns get chopped off and they just look like horses. And then you're just stood in their shit and you have to deal with it. But that doesn't mean that the work is not fun. It doesn't mean that the work is not fulfilling and valuable. It is, right? It's not all pain.
No, it's not. And yeah, there were many times where I was like, oh, gosh, I wish I wasn't even doing this. It's just easier to be numb. And then I was like, no, I can truly say that I never experienced joy in my life until I became conscious and aware of the ways in which I was showing up, until I started pointing the light on the shadows that I was living through. And if I feel that like I'm in a heavy time, I really try to focus on they call them the glimmers, and not just the traumas. And that, yes, we are here to look at our shadows so that we can show up in a different way, but we don't have to be in the work constantly. It's so important to take some time away. Like, I love to learn. I'm always listening to books and always listening to podcasts. And I've done tons of programs and tons of ways to grow. But there's sometimes where I'm like, woof, let's stop analyzing everything so much. And especially with my husband, I really thought that he had to do all the things I did because I kept seeing all the things that he was doing. And I was like, he would say something and then I would point out what he was doing wrong and that's not conscious and that's coming from this theme of and then I was like, you know what? He had, as long as he's being respectful to me and as long as he's owning if he, is disrespectful in some way, let him live his life. I'm not in control of his growth. Same thing with my kids. The only person that I have any control of growth is myself. And I know that I can't constantly be in a growth state. I also have to enjoy my life. I have to put my phone down, go outside, pet my animals, pick my flowers, make my whatever it is I want to do, go on a trip, have some fun, and not to be in this analyzing place all the time. I know that we're trying to evolve our consciousness, but there's no end game that we're trying to get to. Like, we're not going to get to this place and then everything's going to be perfect and everything's going to work out. It's not like that. I like to look at where we are on earth as it's an earth school. So there's constantly going to be learning through our lives, but sometimes we can take breaks and just breathe and have some fun and dance and sing and do whatever it is to enjoy this life.
A little microcosm of that is like I was traveling across country today on the train and I'm listening to all these podcasts and I was just like, I stopped and then I just did nothing. And then for the train journey. And then when I was walking home, I put music on and I never put music on. I was just like, stop filling your brain with stuff because there needs to be a period of integration here. You're not learning shit. You're not even listening, right? Like, so just listen to the birds rather than like this stuff going on in your head, So Valerie, thank you very much. Been a beautiful guest. Pass this on to Chloe as well. It's like I was watching her on the podcast and what an emotionally intelligent, smart, thoughtful, very communicative, like elegant young lady. And for you to jump on there and have those conversations, it's a real gift for people because it is not easy for a parent and a child to agree to do that because it's raw, it's vulnerable, it's your relationship, it's very personal. And you sharing that is a real gift. And it will touch not just fathers and mothers, but it will touch children as well, and children of all ages. We're children, you know what I mean? It's like that parent-child relationship. So I love listening from the point of view that we don't get to listen to that often. And as a father of a young 7-year-old girl, I need all the help I can get. So thank you for that. For people listening at home, where could they find you?
So our podcast is Spiraling Together, a mother-daughter healing journey. And it's really on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. And we have an Instagram and a TikTok and a Facebook and all the things. So Spiraling Together. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Valerie.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. Just a few thank yous. First of all, I want to thank you guys and girls for listening to this podcast and being supporters of it. Many people stop drinking alcohol just by listening to this podcast. I get a lot of people reaching out to me, thanking me for that, right? So give this to somebody as a gift today or rate and review the podcast. If you can rate and review the podcast on your local podcast player and tell somebody about it, you could change somebody's life today, okay? So thank you for listening and thank you in advance for that piece of service. Also want to thank our producer, Stan. Stan is still currently in the Ukraine, fighting the war and producing our podcast while his family is somewhere else in the world right now, okay, apart from him. So everybody send out your prayers and your love. Stan, we love you. Thank you very much for everything you do here. For you out there, if you are starting to think about, contemplate, reflect on your relationship with alcohol, you do not have to do this alone. Yes, you drink alone, but you don't have to stop alone, okay? And if alcohol is not your thing, but you are starting to feel that you actually are living a parts-led life, the ego is getting in the way too much, so you're not happy with the way life is going, then reach out to us at thestrivemethod@gmail.com. Just say, Lee, and just tell me what is on your mind, and we'll start to have that conversation. Strive community is a beautiful place where you can start to feel seen, heard, and matter. It's where you can get community, and it's where you can start practicing what we call the 8 C's of self, our core values, right? Or creativity, curiosity, connection, compassion, courage. I can't remember the rest of them, but there's 8 of them, right? And we have our quest structured. So we have assignments, and they're really interesting, exciting. At the end of them, we say to you, come on, do this quest, right? Get involved in this challenge. And strivers are really finding it exciting, and they're working their challenges in these areas that are going to increase the amount of time they spend in self-energy, in a state of flow. And that has amazing repercussions for the relationship you grow with yourself, and for how you reach out to others in their life, like how you parent, how you are as a child to your, not child, but a son or a daughter, how you are in the relationship with the person you share your bed with, and how you behave with your employees, right? So reach out to me at strivemethod@gmail.com if you want to learn more. Okay, much love, everybody.